Hi everybody, my name is Adam Purdy, and today we'll be discussing the case study for our final project, which involves Mr. Anthony Wagner and the Division of Transportation that he works in, and what kind of budgeting process he came up with to best strategically plan for the next fiscal year. Mr. Wagner installed a participated budgeting process for planning purposes and a management by exception reporting procedure within each particular department. That way, he didn't come up with a budgeting process that he sent to all his departments, but rather had them do their own budgeting process and send it back to him for his approval. And we're going to talk about some of the behavioral and operational benefits of that, and also some deficiencies within it. And I looked up a similar research article that today tries to give the best possible practice for how to budget your organization. So let's talk about first Mr. Wagner and how his style worked for him. Again, it has several operational and behavioral benefits. One of it is giving their employees value. When you put employees in control of certain situations, it exhibits that you trust them, and it gives them more of just a daily duty. It makes them feel their worth within an organization, and it makes them care for their organization because they want it to do well. If you're in control of something, you want to make it look good on you that you performed it at a very high level and at a very successful level. So for this reason, I think this is a huge behavioral benefit because it gets your employees directly involved with how the company is going to budget for the upcoming fiscal year and how they're going to succeed in that. I know it only breaks down costs and not as much value creation, but it does help gain a sense of each department how they're going to afford this next cost for the year. Some operational benefits I put specialization. He put down management by exception, so that's only looking into the costs that are not going according to plan. There's a lot of things that you can expect cost-wise, like raw materials, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, how much all that's going to be. But there's things that plan for, like if a flood happens and manufacturing overhead ends up being more than expected, or for a departmental or division of transportation case, it could be like a road breaks down that you weren't that you just repaired and you were expecting to break down, and you got to account for costs of repairing that so that the city can use it. Certain things like that help specialize what they really need to focus on in their budget, what they need to account for, and just set aside some funds so that they can afford for these cuts if they just happen randomly. There's some deficiencies in this process too. I said one of its managerial control. Mr. Wagner's not going to have as much control over his employees because he's given them a lot of trust and kind of their own responsibility of coming up with a budget. So he's not in control of each department as much. I know he can oversee the budget process. He can go to his accountants and they'll break it down what each one did for their own budget process, but he's not in sole control of creating that budget anymore. And depending on Mr. Wagner's personality, he may be used to this, he may not like it. So it's important for him to understand how he's going to do that. And I've put another thing as accounting. You put a lot of duties and job and time hours on an accountant to make all of these reports on each department. So I think it'd be beneficial to hire more than one accountant for the Division of Transportation if you're going to accomplish this style of budgeting. I also did a research article. I was trying to analyze several different budgeting practices today, and which ones are better than others, and if there's a certain best budgeting practice. And the article basically stated that there isn't. Each organization is going to have a different budgeting process, but it's important that it comes up with some kind of form of figuring out how it's going to pay for its costs each fiscal year, even though they're not always like infrequent data analysis. It's still important that you develop one so that you understand how you're going to afford each year, and take care of your costs, I guess, and set aside room for costs that are unexpected, or management by exception, for example. The best quote I liked from it that, if I can find it here real quick, was that current objectives on finding the best budgeting practices look at engendering a philosophy that works for the firm in light of their current circumstances and improving teamwork. So not only is it dependent on what organization or what your organization does, but the main thing is improving teamwork. So, making sure your employees have value goes back to that. I think Mr. Wagner did a great job in his participative budgeting process, that he's going to work on improving teamwork within the organization, because that creates a better chemistry environment and a team that really cares for their organization. I know I didn't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I really hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you for everything, and I learned a lot in this class, and I can't wait to see what you have for this. So thank you so much. All right. Nice seeing everyone.